You're listening to the Vox Media Podcast Network.
This is What the Heck with Mike Heck on MMAfighting.com. Now, here is your host, Mike Heck.
What the heck?
Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome to a brand new edition of What the Heck on MMAfighting.com. My name is Mike Heck. Appreciate you checking out the program this week, especially since there's no UFC card this weekend. A rare weekend off for the biggest fight promotion on planet Earth. It is Independence Day holiday weekend here in the United States. And, you know, not that we can really go out and do much with everything going on, but between those 5 cards at the UFC Apex that started May 30th and then wrapped up this past weekend with Dustin Poirier versus Dan Hooker, I mean, the timing is perfect for a weekend off to sort of let it breathe, and then we can get ready for Fight Island, which kicks off July 11th, UFC 251, about a week and a half away. 3 title fights on that card, headlined by Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns for the welterweight title, Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Holloway for the featherweight title, and then Petr Yan versus Jose Aldo for the vacant bantamweight title. Main card is great. Undercard is great. The other 3 cards, July 15th with Calvin Kattar versus Dan Ige. That's a great card. We got Joseph Benavidez and Davison Figueiredo battling it out, rematch for the vacant flyweight title on July 18th, and then July 25th is headlined by Robert Whittaker versus Darren Till. So a lot to be excited about when it comes to Fight Island. We'll be talking about Fight Island across the board later on with our first guest of the show. But like I was saying earlier, this past Saturday's card was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. UFC on ESPN 12 got the all-time classic with Poirier and Hooker. To me, I talked about this in Between the Links, that's fight of the year. No disrespect to Zhang Weili and Yuadi and Jacek. That fight was absolutely bananas. But the way I see it, if we're having a debate week after week like this about what's the fight of the year, is this fight of the year, was that fight of the year, this is a great problem to have, right? I mean, that fight between Poirier and Hooker was incredible. And the fight between Zhang Weili and Yuadi and Jacek, incredible. Josh Emmett versus Shane Burgos, incredible. Justin Gaethje versus Tony Ferguson, incredible. We've had a lot of incredible fights. We really have. But Poirier Hooker, kudos to both of you guys. We had Mike Perry back in the win column. He was a huge story coming into the event and coming out of that event. Picked up a win over Mickey Gall, Maurice Greene, crazy submission win. Khama Worthy, crazy submission win. Julian Erosa, crazy submission win. Kay Hansen, great submission win. We had some big knockouts from the likes of Tanner Boser and Takashi Sato. There was a lot to like about this event, and we're going to talk all about it this week on What the Heck. Let's run down the lineup. Get to our first guest. Wrapping things up this week, the aforementioned Julian Erosa. I mean, what a story this guy is. 2 stints with the UFC, released a total of 3 times in that span. 1-4 in the promotion. He was on The Ultimate Fighter. He's on the Contender Series. And he gets another shot with the UFC on less than a week's notice to fight one of the featherweight division's top prospects in Sean Woodson, guy who was undefeated. And he finishes him via Darce choke in the 3rd round. I really, really, really enjoyed this conversation with Julian Erosa. I think you guys will as well. So we'll check in with Juicy J a little bit later on. Maurice Greene, the crochet boss, will join us following his out-of-nowhere submission win over Gian Villante in the featured bout this past Saturday. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Tanner Boser calling him out and much more. For the last couple of weeks, people have been hitting me up, telling me that after his first appearance on What the Heck, they are now big fans of Khama Worthy. The Death Star returned to action on Saturday. He took on Luis Pena, gets another finish, this time via submission, and now he's back on the show, and I will tell you this, it is glorious, ladies and gentlemen. Khama Worthy is fantastic. But kicking us off, it has been a while since we have had him on, a fellow born and raised Bostonian. We're going to talk to Jon Anik, and I thought he was absolutely sensational on Saturday night with the calls, post-fight interviews. He knocked it out of the park, and now he gets ready to head to Fight Island very soon. So let's check in with the great Jon Anik. All right, we move ahead to our next guest. In fact, he was the very first guest in the history of this program, and this is long overdue to get him back on. Jon Anik, play-by-play voice for the UFC, Anik and Florian podcast. And I don't know what was more of a talking point on Saturday night, Max Holloway's hair or the mustache of Jon Anik. It was all over social media. But, John, good to see you, man. How are you?
It's good to see you, man. You've been killing it since joining MMA Fighting.com, so I'm happy to see that. But, yeah, the mustache thing, you know, us play-by-play guys, we're trying to sort of fall firmly underneath the radar, and I can grow a full beard in 48 hours. So I didn't really even notice that the mustache was a little bit thicker than normal. But now certainly we have to go Casey Leiden style and go like complete mustache in Abu Dhabi. So that's the plan.
There you go. And we haven't really spoken like this since before the April 18th iteration of UFC 249 was postponed. And you've got to call some big ones over the last couple of months. And, you know, I guess my first question is, what has it been like from a broadcasting perspective, going from full arenas, capacity crowds to 15,000 seat arenas with no one to fill the seats, and then to the UFC Apex?
Well, Jacksonville was a lot different than Vegas has been. We did not have the hockey plexiglass in Jacksonville, so our every word was being heard by the fighters. It was interesting to talk to Dustin Poirier after the fight, to hear from him that he seemed to hear most of what we were saying and said it was echoing off the walls. So that kind of is what it is. I mean, I am trying to be a little bit more measured at times when I'm relaying corner man advice or things that I think would be blatant in terms of a fighter wanting to hear what we have to say. But that's been the biggest part of the adjustment for us. Certainly when I got to go take a piss, it's a lot nicer that I don't have to navigate fans and things like that. But I miss the fans dearly. I've said to you and others that the fans are a performance enhancer for the announcers. It's not a crutch, right? But it's certainly something you lean into when you have the benefit of a live event audience. So I can't wait till we have fans again. But at this point, in this climate, I don't think we'll see fans in 2020. And I think I speak for a lot of my broadcast partners when I say we've gotten pretty conditioned to calling fights in empty arenas.
One thing that I've noticed, and I have three brothers, and none of them were MMA fans at all. Like, they casually watch. I have a little brother who just like watches it just because he likes to bet on anything. So he bets on fights, which I'm sure you can appreciate. But I think all three of them throughout this process, because of the empty arena and getting to really hear what happens in a fight outside of the crowd, like from the breathing to the strikes landing to receiving a body shot, they've really grown to appreciate the sport a lot more than they did before this all began. Have you sort of noticed that as well, that people are really starting to, I guess, appreciate the sport more now that there's no fans and they get to really feel like they're in there in a way?
Yeah, I think you hit on a lot of good points there. I mean, the Poirier Hooker numbers, the early returns are that we did a great number there. And my social media is a pretty good direct indicator when I get it off the air, depending on how many mentions I have a pretty good idea as to what our television rating was. So I think there's been some fan retention. I think guys like your brothers who are maybe watching us in early May, watching UFC 249, now they're tuning in every week. So I think the question for me is, how much of that audience are we going to be able to retain once these other sports are back up and running? But it's hugely encouraging, obviously, and the fighters deserve all the credit. I think the 25-foot octagon is getting more credit than it deserves. The fighters, I think, deserve a lot of the credit. I mean, certainly the numbers suggest that there are more finishes in this little guy, but the athletes have really delivered. I don't think training camps have been compromised the way a lot of people felt like they would be. So you're still getting high-level mixed martial arts, and as much as I miss my kids, I've been thankful to have a front row seat for most of it.
There you go. And I have to say, John, you've been a part of a lot of events over the years. Your voice is synonymous with some of the best fights and the biggest moments in the history of the sport, and you always do a great job. But to me, I thought this past Saturday night was one of those nights for you that we're going to be talking about for a long time. Like, from the calls to the post-fight interviews, most notably with Maurice Greene and Mike Perry, I thought it was really incredible. So I don't know about you. I don't know how you feel about specific nights and specific cards, but when the night ended and you're like heading back to the hotel, did it feel like it was one of those special nights in your career?
Well, it means a lot to hear you say that. And yeah, I mean, I think it feels special. We can sort of have a tendency to not enjoy the fruits of our labor and just spin it forward to the next show and bury it as quickly as we can, because there's so much work that has to be done sometimes 2 weeks in advance to get ready for the next show. But, my boss, Zach Candido, called me a couple days after the show and said how happy he was with the post-fight interviews. I don't always get that phone call, so that meant a whole lot to me. But a lot of it is rooted in the preparation, right? In knowing the stories intimately of guys like Khama Worthy and Maurice Greene, so that when they win a fight, you know what the context is. And I didn't know that the Crochet boss was going to be that emotional after the fact, but I do know that him moving his family to New Mexico, Mike, was contingent upon the win bonus, on winning that fight, right? So his kids are starting school in a month, right? I mean, these are big decisions, right? And it's not like his son is 3 years old. His son is 8 or 9 years old, right? There are lives that are impacted by the outcomes of these fights. And so I was very happy for Maurice to have that moment, and that he was able to sort of, share his story with everyone. And for Khama Worthy, bro, it's like his gym in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Hopefully it gets a boost from this, but it was an inch away from closing during this pandemic. So these are the stories that mean a lot to me. A play-by-play guy is charged with a lot of things over 7 hours of a live event, but number one for me is trying to humanize these athletes so that people out there give a rip. And I think at least when it comes to Maurice and Khama, their fan bases took a nice swell this weekend. So, it was a special show, and Poirier obviously, cementing his Hall of Fame legacy in my mind. It was a great event.
Yeah, and this will be the last question about broadcasting, because I'm a broadcasting geek and I love having these conversations. But, you've been in the game for a long time now on the broadcasting side. It's been around 7 or so years for me, and it's kind of a lost art in this industry. And I see it a lot with some of the up-and-coming guys, that when these moments are happening and these stories are being told, whether it's in the fight itself or when you're just speaking to the fighters, to know when to sort of like lay out and just like let the moment happen. The silence can sometimes be louder than your actual words themselves. You know what I mean? And I think you did such a great job at that on Saturday night, Jon. I mean, that's something that I feel is a lost art in this industry.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Sincerely, I really do. Television and radio are different beasts, right? This is a television call. And even if you don't have crowd noise, you have to let certain moments breathe and be comfortable in your own silence. Even if you look at the interview with Platinum Mike Perry, right? And thankfully, I got great producers who laid out as well. It's not like they were telling me that I had to intervene at any point during that interview, but we're witnessing gold. Mike Perry versus the tax man, right? This was perfect, right? There's no reason for me to say anything. And I do think if you're able to check your ego and be a good listener, then it can pay off in a live TV setting. So to have someone like you acknowledge it a few days after the fact is not lost on me. But I would be lying if I said it's not on to Fight Island. I mean, I do have no choice but to bury these quickly. I'm doing July 11th and July 15th, 2 shows in 5 days. So we have turned the page, my man, to say the least.
Yeah, I do want to ask you, we'll go on to Fight Island, I promise.
No, of course.
Yeah, because the last time you were on, we discussed briefly about Zhang Weili versus Jon Anik.to, and you said that was the best fight that you've had the privilege to sit cage side for. And since then, we've seen Justin Gaethje versus Tony Ferguson. What a wild fight that was. And as good as that was, not sure if it really eclipsed the strawweight title fight. But Dan Hooker versus Dustin Poirier, that one might have done it for Fight of the Year for me. Like, I watched both those fights back to back on Monday, and I'm leaning towards Poirier Hooker, maybe just because both guys are so close to being finished. That could change tomorrow, Jon, but you called both of those fights. Do you think Poirier versus Hooker surpassed that one?
All right, so I will answer that question. But first, I just want to say, for Josh Emmett and Shane Burgos, right, a 3-rounder versus a 5-rounder. Had that fight been a main event over 25 minutes, which it easily could have been, that fight might be in the conversation as well. But I think it's hard. Even Vicente Luque versus Nico Price, a 3-round fight that ends quickly. It's hard to hold up in the Fight of the Year conversation. I think, excuse me, Mike, the biggest difference for me was that when it went to the scorecards for Zhang Weili and Jon Anik.to, we didn't know who won, and there was a belt on the line. And even though I thought Zhang Weili probably won the fight, it was wicked close. Whereas in Poirier Hooker, over the final 10 minutes, Dan Hooker really did fade, and it was all heart for him to power through that exhaustion and see the final horn. So I didn't know that we had the ebb and flow over the final 10 minutes in Poirier Hooker. For me, that makes it hold up was Zhang Weili and Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and I can't get past Joanna's forehead and her fighting through that. So the ladies have not been dethroned in the Fight of the Year conversation for me. And again, I have more respect for Dan Hooker than anybody almost in the fight game. I mean, that dude I put on a pedestal, but I just think that after the war with Felder, just that round 5, man, he just had nothing left, you know?
Yeah, and what's great about a fight like that is that although Dustin Poirier won, I feel like Dan Hooker's stock rose quite a bit in that fight. And having a guy like Justin Gaethje saying, "Great fight, you deserve a seat at the big dog table," that's huge for a guy like Dan Hooker. Even with the loss, if there's a silver lining anywhere, there it is.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think some people suggest that maybe Dan Hooker doesn't have a championship ceiling now. I'm not willing to go that far. He has fewer miles on the tank than Poirier. He's still a guy who I think is a force to be reckoned with in this division. I just think that when you go through a fight like he did against Edson Barboza, his team made him take 8 or 9 months off. Then he goes through the war with Paul Felder. He was willing to turn around and fight Poirier May 16th. Right? Thankfully, it ended up being June 27th, but I do believe when you go through those type of fights, the more time you can take off in between, the better it can be. So I think a Hooker-Poirier rematch down the line would be super competitive. And again, I think Eugene Bareman will make some improvements and modifications with Dan Hooker. But the cardio abandonment to me was really just pure exhaustion and maybe just turning around a little too soon after that Felder war in late February.
Absolutely. And now it is on to Fight Island for you. It all kicks off July 11th, UFC 251. And, talk about a guy whose stock rose during the Vegas residency. Gilbert Burns gets a big win over Tyron Woodley. He jumps up to the top contender spot at 170 and now has a chance to become a world champion when he faces Khama Usman in the main event. And I think it's so crazy that like a year ago, I think it was August of last year, he's fighting Alexei Kunchenko, and now he's about to go to Fight Island and fight for a world title. Like Durinho has a huge task ahead of him, but man, he's become one of the best stories in the sport, has he not?
Dude, I mean, absolutely. What an improbable run to welterweight prominence, right? This is a guy who got knocked out by Dan Hooker in the summer of 2018. And had that not happened, maybe he wouldn't have put his focus into the welterweight division. It's hard for me to talk about this fight without just thinking about the friendship between Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns, right? Because Kamaru has cornered Gilbert before. Like, they're teammates, they're longtime teammates, they're friends, and I do think that it is a part of this fight. When Khama Worthy knocked out Devontae Smith last year and turned in what was on paper the biggest upset of the year, I think part of that was a byproduct of familiarity, that he was so comfortable with Devontae Smith that he was just not at all fazed by the environment or the pressure or the UFC debut. He felt like it was a sparring session. So for me, that's a disadvantage for the incumbent, for the champion, right? Some people would say it's neither here nor there. It's not an advantage for one guy or the other. But I think for Kamaru, who's 11-0 in the UFC, he was untouched before the Colby Covington fight. Now he's fighting a guy that knows his every move. So I think it was hugely smart for Kamaru to get the hell out of South Florida, to go to Trevor Whitman, who is the consensus best in the game, right? And really try to get a change of scenery and focus on turning Gilbert Burns into an enemy. Because every time there's been an enemy in the UFC, Kamaru Usman has dominated that party. I think it's going to be a kickboxing match. I think Kamaru probably doesn't want to mess around too much in the guard of the great Gilbert Durinho Burns. And some people say Burns is the better striker. I'm not so sure, but I think it's going to be a kickboxing match.
Yeah, I can't wait for that fight. Three title fights total on the card. We got Usman versus Burns. We got Volkanovski versus Holloway in a rematch for the featherweight strap. And then we have Piotr Jan versus Jose Aldo for the vacant bantamweight title. All of them have very interesting storylines attached to them. But if you had to pick one, John, which one of these 3 title fights, I guess, fascinates you the most?
Definitely the rematch between Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway, because when we sat down with Volko before the first Holloway fight, he sort of had this feeling, like a lot of guys do coming into their first UFC title fight against a long-reigning champion, that he was going to have to beat Max Holloway twice. Now, I'm not saying that Eugene Bareman and the City Kickboxing guys held back necessarily the first time around, but they knew they were going to have to beat this guy twice. So perhaps a lot of people are focusing on the Holloway adjustments and not thinking about Volkanovski's game plan and how he might approach a second fight differently. So fascinated to see what the consensus greatest featherweight of all time, Max Holloway, can do to try to force the issue and make this a different fight. Because even though he did rally late, one of those judges had 50-45 for Volko. He gave Volkanovski all 5 rounds, and I kind of saw it that way too. I mean, maybe there was a round for Max in there late, but I saw an argument that Volkanovski had a clean sweep that night. So Holloway's got to make a lot of adjustments. I think Volkanovski will come with a tweaked game plan as well, and just absolutely fascinated by championship rematches anyway. And then, of course, for Piotr Jan, what a stud, man. If he can beat Jose Aldo to begin the Jan era, no better way to do it. So, yeah, as much as I have to do hurdle-wise to get to Abu Dhabi in terms of nasal swabs and everything else, as you can see, I can't wait to get there and see these fights play out on the island.
Yeah, the whole card's really good. We got Andrade versus Namajunas-2. We got Amanda Ribas versus Paige Van Zandt. The featured prelim on that card, Volkan Ozdemir versus Yuri Prochazka. Good Lord, man. You get to call that fight? I'm so excited for that one. Yeah,
there's a lot of hype behind that young man. And Volkan Ozdemir is a totally different guy than he was a couple years ago. Physically, mentally. So that's a great fight and really is one of our deeper pay-per-views. I think we're all going to look back at UFC 249 and think, man, how is that not, at least on paper, the card of the year? But again, you're talking about 5 main events on this pay-per-view, 3 title fights. Championship triple headers are pretty rare in the UFC, I think 6 or 7 times all told. And then Ribas Van Zandt certainly is a headline-worthy fight for an ESPN fight night. And then the rematch between Namajunas and Andrade feels like a title fight to me. So we're absolutely loaded. The weird thing for me, Mike, and I know you'll appreciate this, dude, my call time is 1 a.m. local time in Abu Dhabi, right? When we went in September, we catered to the Abu Dhabi audience, right? So it was in their realm. This time around, we're catering to the American TV audience, 10 p.m. Eastern pay-per-view. So 3 a.m. first fight, bro. So we'll be sleeping all day, waking up in the middle of the night, and cracking a mic at 3 o'clock in the morning. Caffeine's a powerful thing, but it's going to be interesting at 3:05 a.m., I can assure you.
There you go. True or false, the most under-the-radar fight on Fight Island is Deiveson Figueiredo versus Joseph Benavidez.
I think so, because I could sit here and talk to you about Calvin Cade or Dan Ige until I'm blue in the face, because in some other media I've been asked, what's the off-the-radar fight that you're most excited for? I feel weird mentioning a main event, but Cade or Ige is a great fight, and to see 2 featherweights who are willing right now to put their candidacy on the line against each other with all that momentum, I just have a lot of respect for those guys, because the loser, 2-year setback potentially in terms of your championship aspirations. Any way you slice it. Shane Burgos loses to Josh Emmett, 2-year setback in terms of your championship aspirations. But yeah, Benavidez Figueiredo, I think it's more competitive than the odds makers suggest. I saw Benavidez as a 2-1 underdog. I think he deserves more respect than that. And even though he was the guy who is probably guilty for the headbutt happening, it was a factor in the fight. So we'll see if Figueiredo can make weight. Hopefully he can. He's an absolute monster at 25. But there's an asterisk. You have to make the weight to be the monster at 25, and cautiously optimistic that he will.
Yeah, Cater's hilarious. I spoke with him the other day, and he shot me a text like right after the fight card was announced. It was like, when you post everything in the start times, is that right? Does that mean I'm fighting at like 6 a.m.? Yeah. I was like, yep. I was like, I guess I'm right. I'm like, that's what the thing showed on the broadcast when you guys are announcing the card. But yeah, there you are. Get ready, man. But obviously very exciting stuff. And honestly, John, to see what the UFC has done over these last few months, because let's be honest, there weren't a lot of people overly enthused at the beginning of this all that they were even doing the right thing. And I didn't go on Twitter and start slamming the UFC or anything like that, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't have my reservations. They proved me wrong. They proved a lot of people wrong. So to be a part of this train that has just kept on moving during the craziest year that I've been alive for, what has that been like for you?
It's been a wild ride. I mean, I would be lying if I said there wasn't some anxiety for me in early April when I was wrapping my head around getting from South Florida to Lemoore, California, given what the climate was back then. But if you're Dana White and the UFC brass, you have to be bullish. You have to not fear failure. Managing risk the whole time, but you have to be willing to fail to try to execute in this climate. And I sound like a broken record when I talk about the UFC as this well-oiled machine that deals with all these different global challenges and variables wherever we go, losing a fight day of, Amanda Nunes, pulling out, or Robert Whittaker a few hours before we're to go live. People have no idea the live production ramifications that we've dealt with in the past. And even though this global pandemic is unforeseen, I just felt like if any organization was going to figure out a way to get shows off the ground, it was the UFC. And even though we don't have some of the obstacles that the other sports leagues have, it's still a challenge to get a show off in this climate. And we've done 20% of our live event schedule. We've done 8 of 40 events from May 9th to June 27th. So there have been a few positive tests here or there, but I think the promotion deserves credit. And I'll admit, and maybe you saw this on my Instagram this morning, I'm a little bit surprised that the other sports leagues not only haven't solicited opinions from the UFC or followed suit with the UFC, but how about acknowledging Dana White and giving the guy and his executives some credit for getting shows off the ground in a climate where other people have been massively passive and have had their trepidation maybe get in the way of getting off the ground. I think these other organizations need to look at the UFC and say, man, I know we have teams and things like that, but why are they having success and we're still trying to figure out how to get one show in the camp?
Yeah, it's crazy to see what they've done. And, like we talked about earlier, more people are watching now, which is great. And hopefully as these fight cards continue to go on, because there hasn't been a dud event yet. They've all been really good. Even the ones, a lot of people were poo-pooing the Calvillo versus I card, but that turned out to be really, really good at the end of the day. It's never judge a book by its cover, John. I think that's what we've learned through this whole thing.
Dude, you're so right. We could do 25 minutes easily just talking about the prelims from that Poirier Hooker card. You know what I mean? You got all these guys, these underdogs, the Julian Erosa story, riding his bike in Vegas, hoping to get a call 1-4 in the UFC and goes out and beats a guy as a plus 400 underdog. It truly is the land of the unpredictable, the theater of the unknown. And the NFL better get back soon, because you know me, the NFL is king, but the greatest sport in the world might be taken over if football doesn't come back soon.
Yes. Perfect segue. Cam Newton, New England Patriots. Big news. Very interesting move for both parties. What do you think?
I think the Patriots offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniels, was always going to try to get a really mobile quarterback once the Tom Brady era was over. So we'll see if Cam Newton can beat out Jarrett Stidham for the job. I think he'll win the job if he's healthy and ready to go. And I also think Cam Newton can be coachable and can fall in line and can adhere to the playbook and be a good soldier. And if not return to the MVP level, certainly help the Patriots win the AFC East and be viable. The one thing you knew about Bill Belichick, that he was not going to punt on the season. And when Brian Hoyer is your backup, you're punting on the season, right? He's the worst backup in the NFL. If anything happens to Jarrett Stidham, Brian Hoyer is your quarterback, and that puts you in a position where you are not going to be making the playoffs. So I couldn't be happier. Hopefully Cam Newton is healthy, and with respect to his fellow Auburn guy Stidham, I hope Cam Newton wins the job.
Yeah, I hope he can check his ego at the door, Just keep an open mind. We've seen some of these big names come in, and then 2 weeks into camp, they're just like, nope,
right,
can't do this. So
well, it's low risk, and if they cut him early, maybe I wouldn't be totally surprised. If you're asking me today, do I think he wins the job? I think it's like a 55-45 proposition. I'm not sure, if he's going to beat out Stidham, but we'll see.
I think he's the opening day starter, and then go from there.
Oh, let's go. I hope you're right.
Me too. But I can't thank you enough, John. We could do this, like you said, for another couple of hours, no problem. But you got some traveling to prepare for. So I want you to enjoy the time with your family before you head out. Safe travels, and can't wait to hear you on these broadcasts, man. All the best to you.
Thank you, buddy. I'll be in touch when I got boots on the ground, and continued success, man. Nobody happier to see it than me.
Great stuff from Jon Anik right there. And like I said, as a guy who loves broadcasting, kind of a broadcasting geek, really into it, John was incredible on Saturday night. I wasn't just saying it because he was sitting across a computer screen from me. I really thought it was top notch. It really, really was. So big thank you to the great Jon Anik for coming back on the program. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Khama Worthy. He's going to join us to discuss his big win over Luis Pena over the weekend. And I will warn you ahead of time, doesn't really surprise me. I've been interviewing Khama Worthy for a long time. Khama's doing some multitasking. He was doing the interview, and he was teaching a fitness class at his gym simultaneously. It's actually pretty hilarious. Always a blast chatting with the Death Star. This one was no different. Here he is, Khama Worthy, back on What the Heck. All right, we have Khama Worthy back on the show, coming off his impressive third-round submission win over Luis Pena this past weekend at UFC on ESPN 12. Huge win for the Death Star, who's multitasking right now. He's doing an interview and teaching a class at the same time. How are you, man?
Told you I'd be back on Monday. I wasn't joking. It's Tuesday. I'm doing good, man. Can't complain.
Well, it's good to see you, man. Congratulations on the win. And I'll be honest with you, sir. You winning the fight wasn't very surprising at all. You came into the fight winning 6 straight. But submitting Luis Pena, that surprised me a little bit and surprised a lot of other people. Maybe we're just casuals after all, Khama. But that choke was absolutely nasty. The setup was brilliant. You're not just a knockout artist, are you?
No, I mean, like I said, I train in Pittsburgh. Like, Pennsylvania has some of the best wrestlers in the world. I've done my whole career here fighting in Pittsburgh and Ohio. So I've you know how many D1 wrestlers I've run into? like there's a D1 wrestler in every fucking corner with his ears all fucking messed up and shit. So they're all over the fucking place. So if you don't, you have to learn how to deal with high level grappling, fighting out of PA. Even if you are a high level striker like myself, I still have to learn how to deal with that. So I have a couple of tricks that I work on, and that's one of them.
Yeah, it wasn't like a catch can guillotine choke. Like there were some modifications to it, a little bit of a different angle, a different grip, and different position. Like how long have you had that particular choke in your arsenal?
So I have like 3 different ones depending on what the person does and stuff like that. But my man, like I said after my fight, my man Isaac Greeley, he's a MMA coach out here. He runs the Mat Factory. They have like world-class wrestlers and grapplers up there and stuff, world-class fighters as well. That's for Chris Dempsey, Don Mazzata, Dalton. They all train out of there. And they're like our sister gym and stuff. I've been going there for at least like 3 or 4 years now, probably 5 years actually. And he showed me that a while ago because I was stopping it. I was stopping takedowns a certain way, and he was showing me if I was really, instead of just pulling guard, like a lot of people jump for guillotine and pull guard, like that guillotine is just used to make it that people don't feel comfortable applying pressure for the takedown and force them to stand up. But if they keep pushing forward, then I just lock it up. And it actually, like what he did was actually the right thing to do. That should get you out of the submission, but the guillotine, it's like backwards. Like, and it's on the wrong way, and it's like, oh, it locks up, and then like you either tap or you go unconscious, one or two. So it's pretty impressive type of choke.
Yes, you have to come up with some kind of nickname for that. Like Aljamain Sterling was able to pull up the Sulov stretch on Cody Stamen, and he called it the Funk Strudel. Do you have a name for that you've been playing around with at all?
Oh, shit. There you go. Oh, because that's what everyone's saying when that happened. Everyone's like, oh, shit, what the hell was that? So it's called the oh, shit. Even though, like, who did it? Jordan Griffin, his last fight, he fought in the card as me as well. His last fight, he did the same thing. He did the same type of guillotine where they're pressing for that takedown and you trap them. They think they're safe, but in reality, they're going to end up choking themselves unconscious or tapping. Like it's a push for the wrestler. Hold on, that 3. All right, get clean and press now with the weight, same weight. Yep, same slow motion. Sorry.
You are the multitasker after all. I know you were asked this at the media day, but I spoke with Luis like 10 minutes after I spoke with you heading into the fight, and he shared your enthusiasm for the matchup. He shared your enjoyment of Feely versus Jourdain, and it was on this very program that he said that he was going to meet you in the middle and see who would drop first. And in the first round, kind of seemed to be the plan, but the second round plans changed a little bit. Did anything at all surprise you in that fight?
No. The only thing I kind of beat up myself for, because I should have, I kind of like got into, like, I was trying something different, and that's how he was able to get the takedown off of me. And I was really like, I made a thing on Instagram today, and I gave myself a C+ for that performance, because I was so worried about his darts that I didn't trust my own jiu-jitsu. So when he got the side control, I didn't dig for the underhook and look the pressure up. I was trying to think about what not to do, because I didn't want to get, like, if I didn't want to go into side control, I didn't want to go for the underhook, and he like pushed my head down and get a darce, because his darces are wicked, and I was worried about that. And as I'm worrying about that, the motherfucker climbs a mountain, like, fuck. So I was like, okay, and then I went to blow out of it, and I'm like, okay, I'll give him my back. I'm cool with that. I know my back defense is solid. I'm okay with him being on my back. I'm like, I'll just let him wear out. But he was such a weird, his body was so weird, like the length and stuff, like the pressure. He didn't apply the pressure where everyone else applies the pressure on my back that allows me to turn. He applied it to my hips, and I couldn't really move the way I wanted to. So it took me a lot longer to roll over and stuff. He did exactly what I thought he was going to do. But I knew, like, I think there's maybe like 2 or 3 guys, or 4, maybe 5 guys in the UFC that when I say, let's go strike, are going to be, all right, motherfucker, let's go. Like, I know everyone says they watch and like, oh, he doesn't look like he hits hard. It's not like, I've said it before after my last fight. I said I'm not like everybody else. Like, I'm just the way that I strike, and like I'm a thinker. I was so happy because Dominic Cruz said it. He's like, oh, you're a thinker fighter. Like, and Dominic Cruz was just giving me praises to my strike. I'm like, yeah, that's fucking cool shit. Because like the way the setups and the traps that I set standing up, and my comfortability of like being in danger at that time, like we're in a fight. And I think that goes back to my training partners. Like I said, if you come into my gym, the academy, you're going to get fucked up. And you're going to get used to being fucked up because we're going to go at you. So if you get used to that feeling, then when you're in the fight, it's not a foreign feeling for you. Like a lot of fighters, I see them in fights, they get pushed to that point where that guy's trying to take their head off. And they're like, oh, shit, I've never been here before. I've been there like twice, 2 or 3 times a week. My man's trying to kill me. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, it was mentioned on the broadcast, like the way that you were planting your feet in that first round, counter-striking. Like you weren't bouncing back and forth. You just had your feet planted, and whatever he threw, you were already ready to come back with that.
Yeah, the problem is he's freaking 6'4", and if I disengage too much and then he blitzes, I'm on the outside, and he can just keep hitting me. It gives him the advantage. So I was like, fuck that. Me and my coaches were like, be smart about your movements. Be like, have your allies on, like being alert. But he like, just stay there. Make him come to you. Like, why try to hit him and then disengage? If I disengage, I can't hit him. He can definitely hit me because he's much longer. So I played the medium range instead. Like, that's why his kicks couldn't really get through. His jumping knees were really awkward because instead of playing back, trying to play the far back range, which I normally do, I did what most people try to do to me when they fight me. I played the inside range and made him, like, I made him miss a lot. Like, that was the big thing, making him miss and making him feel really uncomfortable trying to punch me. That was the big thing I wanted to make sure I did because, like, when you, like, people don't really know, but when you, like, punch and miss, like, you ever hit a double end ball? But in a fight, when you hit a double end ball and that motherfucker punches you back, like that's a big thing Dominic Cruz kept saying. He goes, every time he makes him miss, he hits him. And that's discouraging. Like that's my head coach, Master Whitefang. That's the biggest thing that he preaches is strike and return, strike and return, strike and return. If you make them miss, you should hit them. You don't have to kill them, but you should hit them because now their brain is like, their brain is setting a pattern of like reflexes. It's like, you ever been walking down your steps? It's how I explain it to my students. You ever been walking down your steps at night and you think there's a step there and it's not, and you go to step you there, and then you stop because your brain's kind of like, oh shit, let's recalculate everything. That's what I like to have people have that type of feeling in the fight. And you don't really have time to recalculate. I'm still hitting you. I'm hitting you. You're worried about getting hit. So I try to create that type of like distraction in your brain and stuff. So it's more of a mental thing than everything. Because again, I'm 33. He's younger. He's like 26. He's younger. He's faster. He has nowhere near as much energy. He doesn't have much stress and wear and tear. So I have to beat him up here rather than physical.
A C+ though, like, listen, you fighters are all the same, man. You're humble and you're so self-critical. Is this a legit C+ or is this like a humble C+?
That's a C+. C+. It can't be a B. Like he cut through my guard twice like butter, all because I was worrying about shit. And then when I knew in his last fight, he got that fucking omoplata, and I worked on that. I said, I'm going to limp arm. I was supposed to limp arm, step back, and throw a straight up knee because he shot right in, just like I knew he would, and I didn't. Instead, I went and tried to push the guillotine. I almost got fucking Von Flute choke. That was me being greedy. I knew the guillotine wasn't going to come until later, and I didn't quite have it, so I still tried to push it. So it's a B. It's a C+. So
is it fair to say that the Devontae Smith win was more satisfying? Did you grade that one a little higher, or is this one more satisfying?
The Devontae Smith fight, I got a B+ in that one. That was a B+ rating. Like that was good. Like, I mean, I jumped in a little bit of times. I didn't check the leg kicks enough for my liking. But that was a B+. All my traps were working and stuff. You know, I did everything I wanted to do in that fight. But I really didn't even get started in the Devontae fight. It just happened to happen. Like he kind of ran into the trap early than I thought he would. So that was a B. But yeah, that I didn't like the display, like my grappling. It kind of looked like I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I did know what I was doing. I was just overthinking what he was capable of. And I have to have a little bit more faith in myself when it comes to being on the ground and stuff, which obviously I have, because then I pull off the submission. Everyone's sitting there all like fucking caveman SpongeBob and shit. I'm like, shit. Like, I don't want people looking like that, like thinking I'm a one-dimensional fighter, because I'm not. I just enjoy hurting people, you know, and if you give me a submission, I'll take it. Like, you give me your back. If I get to your back, you're fucked. Like, you can't put me on your back. You can't let me get a triangle, and you can't, like, you know, I have mad submissions that I like. I just usually just a time if I can see something. Like, I for a second I was kind of upset with myself for not rolling him over and punching him out. Because I like punching people better. But I knew it was so good, and I was a little bit tired too. We were both tired with the third round, so I was like, "Nah, I'm going to go for this." All right, hold on 1 second. Hey guys, so each of y'all grab a dummy. We're putting up on our shoulder. 10 slams. No, they're both the same way. Go ahead.
So
yeah.
You posted a video on your social media the other day. It was of your kids watching the fight, and they were going absolutely bananas. That has to be like the best feeling in the world, right?
Yeah, man. I was at my man Kirk Brady. He's like a big brother to me. He takes care of the family while I'm going for the fights and stuff. And he had my girl and the kids and my little baby, little Marley. She's acting like a maniac just because everyone else is acting crazy, and all the kids and Kirk's kids. And yeah, it was fun, man. I like seeing that. That makes it worthwhile. Seriously, makes it really worthwhile.
One thing I had no idea about Khama was the fact that you were a model in the past. You're a good looking guy, but I had no idea that you were modeling, bro. When was that?
That was way before I even started training. I moved to New York just to check it out. I was in Pittsburgh. I was bored. I didn't want to go to school, and I got offered some modeling stuff here in Pittsburgh. I did it, and I liked it. And then this lady said they had a model house in New York, so I moved up there, and I moved to a model house. It was like me, 12 other people, and shit. It was mad fun. You got to go on castings, get some stuff. It was cool. It was an experience, And then New York was an experience in itself, just to see people different. Coming from Pittsburgh, New York is just different. There's different culture, different people, a lot of different ways of seeing things. So I think that helped me out a lot as well.
When was the last time you modeled for anything? Do you remember?
It was a long time ago, really fucking long time ago. But I'm not against the whole idea of it. I'm like, yo, if there's any companies out there, you want to get me on your thing, you know what I mean? You can kind of double up your market, hit it, get at me, get at my management team, Jason House and them. You contact me personally. I'm all about modeling. I'm cool. Scars, chicks dig scars, right?
I mean, there's precedence. We got some fighters doing the modeling thing right now in the UFC.
Oh, yeah, that's fucking Rocco, man. Rocco, he be on Ralph Lauren. He be doing serious modeling shit. You got to plant your feet when you get it up.
At the bottom?
There you go.
Do you want to push your feet on like that?
You said something to the media that you've been saying since you beat Devontae Smith, and that's you don't fight because you have this dream of becoming a world champion. I mean, if it comes, that's cool, but you just want to be in exciting fights. And you said on Saturday night during your scrum, you want Robbie Lawler versus Rory McDonald type of matchup. So I guess who in your line of vision can give you that kind of crazy war that you're seeking, Khama? What makes sense to you?
Definitely, like I said, I definitely want to get Azatar, I mean, because he has a 90% knockout ratio. I'm like, oh, really? Oh, fuck. Oh, really? Okay. That's the shit that gets me up in the morning to go jog 20 miles or some shit. So I'm like, yeah, that's all the way on your shoulder, guys. That's what I want. That's what I want to see. Like I said, Yancey, I've like I said, for Yancey, he's just anybody that fucks with the Diaz brothers is a fucking savage. I know Nate. He's now. I don't think he'd get back down to 55. I would love to featherweight or Nick, the wrong one, right? Yeah, Nick. I'm like, if he's fucking huge, so there's no way he's getting back down to 55. I got to meet him at my last fight. Been a fan of his forever. I'm like, this motherfucker never making it 55. But they're fun fights, man. You know what I mean? Of course, everyone wants to win, but I don't want to win. There's some fighters are just boring as fuck, man. Dude, who wants to watch that shit? How do you go home after winning a fight like that and the crowd's booing you and shit? Oh man, I can't. I'd rather fight guys are fun fights, and I want to take my time and get my proper place in UFC, but also get some interesting fights. So Azatari, I have 2 fights. He has 1 fight. Hopefully they can make that fight freaking happen. I know the Khabib versus Gaethje card's coming up. I think that's going to be on Fight Island. I know he trains with him. We could be on the card. It's another high-ranking lightweight as the main event, and I think that would be a good way to do it, or something before that. I know Yancey was supposed to fight, and his fight got canceled. So if we can mix it up in there, either way, I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, like one of my rules for the website is I have to do a matchmaking column that drops like the Monday after the card. So I suggested Lando Venata because one, it's a little bit of a step up in the rankings and it gets you closer to the top 15. Not that you probably particularly care about that, but Lando's a guy who's been known to get in a war or two throughout his career. He's got some highlight reel finishes, man.
He's definitely a fun fighter too. And like it sucks because like all the fighters I'm looking at fighting, I would respect like hell. Like I would like really I wouldn't have any dislike against. Even like with Pena, like I don't have. So it sucks. I don't even like sharing my like fight videos afterwards. Like I don't want to share like me beating up on like a trick old fucking people. I'm telling my students and my fans, I'm like, yo, don't be talking shit on them. Like don't be talking shit on like, especially with the Villante thing. I'm like, don't talk. Like that's my man. Now Pena was so cool from the beginning to the end. It was nothing but respect. So someone wrote something like on one of my posts the other day, and I made him take it down. I'm like, yo, he wasn't disrespectful at all. You don't be disrespectful. Like I'm like, we already fought, it's past, and we move on from that shit. Do that again.
Is there someone like you mentioned Diaz? Is there someone in that division that you hope that you get to fight someday because it will give you everything that you're looking for in that department besides Diaz? Like is someone that can make 55, I guess.
I mean, I don't really like calling out like top 10, 15 guys and shit like that. But of course, like the guy who's a fucking savage, who I've been a big fan of forever, is Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee's a fucking monster. That guy's a complete monster. That would be one hell of a task. Like once I was to get to that point to like prepare for him, and like I'd have to like go into the mountains to prepare for Kevin Lee because like I don't think a lot of people give Kevin Lee the credit he deserves. That motherfucker's an animal. Like he's a freak of nature. Like he's wicked. Like and then obviously like Poirier and Hooker, like those type of guys. Like you get near one of them, like somebody's fucking gonna die tonight, and I like those type of fights. Like I would like to like engage in those. So now I'll just look at the guys at my level until I get there and shit. But again, if I get 2 more wins, I can make that jump. Again, it's just all about making sure I make that jump with the proper financial stability. Because like after that, like that fight with Poirier and shit, you're like, dog, yeah, I'm pretty sure they made like 10 times what I made. So they're like, that's okay to do that type of shit. Like.
So are you on you're on a 4-fight deal, I assume, right now? Yeah. Okay, so one more fight, you're close. You could probably get to the renegotiation table, and then we can start messing around with the Kevin Lees of the world.
Man, I'm like, yeah, man, whatever. I'm just looking to get some corporate sponsors. Monster Energy drink. I love my man Hands and Run Monster. I'm like, yo, I'm gonna make a whole thing for him. I'm like, yo, get at me already. Let's go. He owns Triumph as well. I'm like, somebody needs to do that. And also, I forget what interview it was, but I made a talk to 50 Cent and told 50 Cent to bring back Ghost. You ever watch Power? You watch Power? No,
I haven't watched it yet. No.
I'm pretty sure you heard of it. But they killed off my man Ghost in Power, and I told 50 Cent, I made a public service announcement. I'm going to make it here again. Yo, 50, Fast and Furious brought back 80 motherfuckers. Like, seriously. And the one that just came out, they had to be canceled because of Corona. They brought back the Asian dude that obviously burnt in the car crash. So if they can keep bringing people back, you can bring back freaking Ghost and make some more Power. We don't want to see no spinoff shit. That's garbage. I want to see Power come back with Ghost. And you can bring back Angela too, because those are my characters. Those characters had a place in my heart. And when they both died, it pissed me off. Like, you can ask my girl, I was mad as hell. Like, that's garbage. I've never been so connected to a character because like just watching that show really gave me a little bit more drive, and I think it kind of led me to this point where I'm at in the UFC. I tell people that all the time. So when they killed him off, it kind of pissed me off. So 50 Cent. See this, tag 50 Cent in this shit until he responds. I want to see Ghost come back. I'm not playing, dude.
There we go. I have a feeling this part will be clipped out for social media, but hell of a performance, man. I think you proved to a lot of people that you're a threat in a lot of different ways. You're on a roll right now, and I think I speak for a lot of people when I say that we're excited to see what's next for you and your team. Like, you pulled a Uriah Faber and used your time to put your team over on Saturday night.
My boys are the shit, man. Like, they are. And like I said, because we're in Pittsburgh, Like I don't think we get the proper recognition because we're a smaller gym. Like I'm in my gym now. My gym. Oh shit! Hold on. You can like walk from one edge to the end of my gym in like a good like 30 seconds. You know what I mean? But we come in here and we do fucking work. Like we do serious work. We put in work. We have a small group of guys and we have one-on-one coaching. I think that's what makes us more dangerous. Like every big gym start off as a small gym, and I try to tell fighters that. I'm like American Top Team just didn't start off with 80 freaking guys. Uriah Faber's team Alpha Male start out with him and like 2 other. You know what I mean? Like that's how gyms start off. So you don't have to go to a big gym. Just get the proper coaching, get the proper training, and like make it happen. And here in Pittsburgh, we have some of the best grapplers in the world. Like we do. Like we have some of the best wrestlers in the world, and we can adjust, and we have what it takes. And then like with myself and like a lot of other striking coaches around here, I mean, like we got it good. So. You don't have to go to big gyms. If you want to train, you want to be a professional fighter, come on down to my gym, the academy. I'll put you in with the right direction. If you can't make it out my way in the academy, I'll put you in the proper direction for a different gym that I know. I know all the gyms around here and stuff. So Pittsburgh, we got it out here. So time for Dana White to let us in.
You're the man, Khama. Congratulations on the win. All the best to you, sir.
Thanks, brother.
There you go. And there's certain fighters that when their management team reaches out to me to see if I want to interview certain fighters, there's certain names that get me fired up. Khama Worthy, one of those fighters, and he has been for a long time. And one of the cool things that I enjoy the most being a part of the MMA Fighting team and being able to broadcast on a platform like this is I'm glad that people are starting to see what I've been saying for a while now. Like, Khama Worthy, I've been telling people, is just an incredible interview. He's just a lot of fun. He's very energetic, very intelligent, has lots of great things to say. Just super funny guy. And now you guys get to see it, and you got to see it again. Second time in 3 weeks, I believe, that he joined the show. So big thank you to the Death Star for the time. Hopefully he gets another fun matchup on the books sooner rather than later. Another big winner from Saturday night was Maurice Greene, who was on the brink of being finished in the 3rd round of that fight against Gian Villante, or at best, looking at a draw, but he comes out of nowhere and gets a tap. Like, no one saw it. No one saw it coming on the broadcast. You just saw Villante's hand tap. We're like, what? What the heck just happened? But it goes down in the book as an arm triangle choke, and the Crochet Boss kind of has a different bit of a take on it. So let's get the answers to those questions right now with Maurice Greene. All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining the show right now is the Crochet Boss himself, Maurice Greene, following a 3rd round submission win over Gian Villante in the featured bout at UFC on ESPN 12. Maurice, good to see you, man. How are you?
Oh, man, you know, when you fight big, tough guys, it hurts. So, I'm good, man. The body feels good for the most part, besides just the average things that hurt. And then we're going to heal up. Got some stitches in the face. We're going to heal up and get back to it.
Well, congratulations on the win. It's been a few days for you to sort of let it all sink in and smell the roses a little bit. Outside of the normal wear and tear of a fight, do the roses smell a little bit sweeter today?
Yeah, all this hurts so good. Yeah, man, I went out there to get a W, and we got the W. You know, anything extra added would have been a bonus. I just need to go out there and get W's, stay active, look good, fight good. Yeah, I had some opportunities in the fight. Places where we could have done things a little different, could have done things much better, but we got that every fight.
It was definitely an interesting fight, to say the least. Most of it took place on the feet, as expected. You were moving around a lot. You were very light on your feet. You looked in really good shape. How are you feeling early on in that fight compared to maybe the last couple?
It wasn't. My cardio was never a question, to be honest with you. I felt good, breathing wise, but man, those leg kicks added up over time, and yeah, they paid dividends later on in the fight for him. I tried to do a Superman punch and just didn't work out for me, as you can see. He got the drop on me and countered me, which is the reason why you saw me on my back. But you know, I heard my corner saying, "Get to the cage and get up." But he kept leaving that there for me. So I was like, I could try to squeeze down on it. I think he gave me the best that he had in that flurry. I didn't realize I was cut at the time, to be honest with you, or that I had that many lumps on my head. I didn't think he landed that many, but that's that adrenaline.
First round, you won on all 3 judges' scorecards. Things got a little dicey when Jon landed a nasty body shot. Pain was visible on your face, but you're able to fight through it and get through the rest of the round and continue forward. How badly were you hurt from that shot?
Probably worse than my face showed. That was a good body shot. You know, it kind of wanted me to curl up like, but I was like, no, we can't do it, Maurice, stand up. It's like they were trying to get him to follow up, and he wasn't following up, so it gave me some time to recover in between some of those shots.
I'm gonna lay this all out here. I'm gonna try to do my best surveying of the scene, because the second round was more of the same. You're landing consistently. He lands a couple big shots, but you're able to win that round again on all 3 judges' scorecards. In the third round, you sort of alluded to it. It's a little bit of a different story. There was the accidental eye poke, but as soon as the action resumed, you know, Villante counters the big shot that drops you. You're doing everything you can do to stay in there, to get back on your feet. Looking very bleak for you at the moment. It was looking like best case scenario for you. You were going to fight to a draw, but then Maurice, it happened, and nobody even saw it. Like, you shook up the whole MMA community. The entire UFC roster on Twitter was in disbelief and total shock, Maurice. From your back, you slap on an arm triangle, and he taps out. Like, holy cow. Like, we were all collectively blown away by this submission. Can you walk us through the finish of the fight? Like, what is going on in your mind here?
If I'm correct, which I think I am, he had his hand on my neck. I know he put a lot of pressure. I was starting to lose my breath. And if I didn't do that, I need to get that pressure off my neck. So the first time I'm going to try to get the pressure off the neck and hold him. And so he puts it back. And the next time I'm like, you know what? Let's go for it. What happened, this is what I think happened. I don't think it's like an arm triangle. You kind of can't get that pressure down because you're using your weight on top when you're doing an arm triangle, kind of. But given the circumstances, I heard he had asthma. He just blew his tank, I'm assuming, right? And then his nose and his mouth is in my armpit, kind of. Not really in my armpit, but it's being smothered. He couldn't breathe. I may not have been choking him per se, but he couldn't breathe. So that's the only way I can think about him submitting. He couldn't breathe, and his head was jammed into my sweaty arm.
I mean, everybody was
having a
shocked.
Cocktail.
Oh, God. just everything was just so shocking. Like, when he tapped, everyone in unison was like, "What the hell just happened?" When you felt the tap, were you saying what the hell just happened, or did you know it was coming?
No, I got up like, yeah, what's up? I mean, that can be finished from the bottom. Very rarely. So I had a half guard. He tried to transition to mount. What you guys don't see is this is a jiu-jitsu. You know, I was able to strip my hips out and keep that leg. If he would have got the mount, I wouldn't have had nothing. You know, I couldn't roll to the left where I had his arm trapped, right? Couldn't roll that way. I had to roll to his post, and he probably would have stopped me.
It's just wild, man. There, I know it wasn't like a choke per se, but there has to be like some sort of name for the submission now. Like, let's christen it here. Like, I spoke to Khama Worthy a little while ago. I asked him to name the choke he used on Luis Pena. He's calling it the "oh shit." Like, just quoting him. So I suggested on Twitter, call it the slip stitch. What do you think?
I like it. It's called. I like it. Called the slip. Yeah, call it a slip stitch. I like that.
You go with that? All right. So you are announced the winner via slip stitch. You're strutting, dancing to the backstage area, and then all of a sudden, emotion just catches up with you. Like, everything that, at least from what I was seeing, everything that had been kind of built up, pushed to the side, leading into the fight, it just kind of all came pouring out. It was really incredible to watch. How would you describe that moment as you're getting ready to talk to Jon Anik?
Man, I was good, feeling good. Didn't even think about what was crying and all that stuff. It hit me. Man, Maurice, you just saved your job. But not only did you save your job, I think I had a pretty good performance all around. I went back and watched the fight. For that little dog cage we fought in, I'll say that from a very humble place. From the little dog cage we fought in, I was able to really move and figure out a way to get around a lot of that. But Gian Villante was also not moving as fast as some of these other heavyweights can move. So, we got to get better. We got to get better. And, when you go back and sit down with Jon Anik, I just couldn't hold it back, man. I tried so hard. Just tried to gut it out. And they just came and came and came. So I told him, give me a minute. John was about to say, all right, thanks for your time. Peace. I'm like, no, I got to say something. So, I had a lot of stuff going on leading up to this fight, and we were able to get it done. I mean, a 24-hour drive to Albuquerque straight with 2 kids, that's already. That's how fast we got there, 24 hours. Drove the car. I got to get there. I got to train. So, and then we were there. We trained. And they come out and win like this. I'll take it.
One thing,
because so much sweeter.
Yeah, I would say one thing you said during your post-fight media scrum with the members of the media after the fight was something that I've been wondering about you for a while, because you and I have spoken a lot over the years, and I feel like a lot of times I don't know what the correct word I'm looking for is, but you downplay a lot of the things that are happening heading into a fight. Like if people ask you if there's extra pressure, if you feel like your job's on the line, like you downplay it all. But you said to the media after the fight that you were feeling that the whole time. Is this typical for you, or is this different for this one?
I was feeling all that. I feel that your job's always on the line. I feel like nobody's safe. Everybody's replaceable. Think of how many fighters want to fight in the UFC. You don't want to fight? We'll get somebody who will. Oh, you don't want to fight? I got somebody else who will. So, you downplay because nobody. You don't want everybody to know that because they can make excuses for you.
Yeah.
So, we chose to do this. Camps don't go. All camps aren't just easy breezy, right? You get through it, man. Get through it. I got to feed my family at the end of the day, so that's where a lot of this comes from. I got to feed my family. So.
Are you able to talk about some of the things that were happening leading into the fight that were on your mind?
I won't get into detail, but personal, my family, my kids, just some real shit, man. Just some real shit that was going on, and couldn't nobody help me but me, So, it's just a fight at the end of the day, man. You go in there, there's 2 guys that fight. We got set of rules, the rules of engagement, and we fight. And that's what I went out and did, and felt like I left everything out there. And I got a maybe questionable, controversial win, but guess what? It's going down my record, a submission victory. With a minute left in the 5th round. Or no, a minute left in the 3rd round. I didn't even know how much time I had left. And
so that's even crazier.
I had no idea how much there was. I couldn't see a clock. And usually you see a clock somewhere. Couldn't see a clock. I didn't know how much time I had left. When they said there was a minute left, I'm like, oof, kind of close.
I won't try to dive any deeper to what you were saying with the personal stuff, but can I at least ask if everything's better now? Like you're in a much better place now?
I mean, yeah. This helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's just normal things, man. Stress with bills and, you've been out. I've been out since January. I made half a check in January, and yes, that stuff helps, but we're trying to get ahead. So making half a check don't do it for me. I need the whole thing, If we would have bonus, that would have been much better, but that wasn't my goal. My goal was to get a W, and I got the W.
So did you move? Like, are you officially moved to Albuquerque, or is that coming like down the pipe?
Coming soon.
When is it happening?
Within a month.
Oh, there you go. Pack up the U-Haul and off we go.
Oh, it's real. It's real. I mean, I have to. If I want to be a world champion, I got to be out there focusing. Here, I just can't. I lose focus too easy.
It's got to be surrounded by killers.
Hard to find big bodies too. We got all of them in Albuquerque.
There's a ton out there. Watt Adams, you said that he was a real pivotal person in helping to make this happen, right?
Yeah, and I think getting hit by Watt and getting hit by Gian Villante, it's two different things. The one that John dropped me with, that was just flush clean on the button. It don't get no better than that. It really don't get no better than that.
For sure. As you know by now, seeds for your next fight were planted before you probably even got to the building on Saturday by Tanner Boser. He knocks out Philippe Lins, gets on with Anik, cuts a promo about some sort of run-in at the pool between the two of you guys. You said when you spoke with the media that it wasn't really a run-in per se, more like just a couple of words exchanged. He said, Fight Island, Crochet Boss can come get some. Are you happy with this call-out? Does this make your life a little bit easier?
Yeah, I'll fight Tanner any day of the week. He's a little relevant now. He beat the PFL winner impressively. And I just think they didn't favor him to win. I thought he was going to lose. Yeah, it's a good call. That was a good fight for me. I was the last time that I even heard Tanner Boser's name. I don't know if it was for my manager or who, but they were trying to get me to fight with all 3-0 in the UFC. But I was trying to hit the top 15. He was debuting. I wasn't trying to fight him. So it's no hard feelings. But why would you fight me at debuter when you're 3-0 in the UFC? You want to move up the rankings, right?
All right.
You don't want to stay stagnant. So he got a good win behind him. I got a good win behind me. I don't think we're going to make it to Fight Island, though. So if he wants to go to the island, so you better pick somebody else. Yeah. Look, I got if I can find it, right there. That's all I got. Some little stitches. So I got to sit for a little while. I'm going to heal his body up, get in there with Mike Winklejohn and Greg Jackson and Jackson Wink and learn how to become a champ.
Yeah, most of those cards are full anyway, so unless they just booked it last second and just threw you on there, it probably doesn't get the proper build that it would deserve anyways, right?
True. Yeah.
So what did happen at the pool, if you don't mind me asking?
Nothing, man. He was just sitting there with his corners, and I'm sitting there having a casual conversation with him. But he kind of looked like he was a little standoffish. And I see why. Now I know why. But that's all right, though. He just wants to fight, probably. Makes sense. To talk to, to call me out. But nothing really happened at the pool.
So he kind of overplayed it a little bit?
I mean, maybe in my eyes he did, but, his head, he could have been thinking something totally different. I'm on the phone, Jack.
That's a good point.
Kids.
Oh, it's all good. I got my son down here too. He's like, oh, you're talking to somebody? I'll try to stay quiet. He's watching something on his computer right now.
Mine don't do that. He'd be like, Dad. Dad. Jack, I'm on the phone.
That has happened to me from time to time doing these interviews. No doubt about that. So great stuff, man. Congratulations. I know it was a hard battle. I'm sure there's a million other things you'd rather be doing than talking to me right now, trying to rest up and recoup, man.
If I wasn't talking to you, I'd be packing up. So thanks for a little break.
There you go. Well, hopefully we get to see you back August, maybe September. I feel that's more of an appropriate timeline for you.
I think it's September.
September?
And if I was to be completely honest with you, if I come back in August, I'm rushing it.
Okay. Yeah. That's what you got to do. You got to make sure you're ready and be healed up and get a camp in with the new team and all that stuff. So, Maurice, congratulations, man. Appreciate the time very much. Looking forward to seeing what's next with you. Hopefully you and Tanner Boser can line it up sometime in the fall.
I think that'd be a good fight, absolutely. Between the two of us, I think we can make it a real good fight. He got a mullet, I got a mohawk. Let's get it cracking.
There you go. Thanks, man. All the best to you.
Thanks, Mike. It's always a pleasure.
There he is, Maurice Greene, obviously in a little bit of pain after that fight and the training camp and everything that goes on when you fight a guy as powerful as Gian Villante. But I appreciate him coming on and taking the time to join us this week as we head to our final interview of the show. What a story Julian Erosa was. And I detailed it at the top of the broadcast. We'll get into the story more in depth when Julian comes on. But the Cliff Notes version, guy was 1-4 in the UFC. He's released after his last 2 fights in the promotion. Not just after the Julian Arce fight. He was released before that fight too. They brought him back, gave him another chance. And then he gets another chance after a win on the regional scene. Gets a short notice call to fight Sean Woodson. And as you'll hear in the conversation, he wasn't the first choice. So following an impressive 3rd round submission win and a performance of the night bonus, let's say hello to Julian Erosa. All right, last week was a crazy and a very memorable week for our next guest, who returned to the UFC on short notice, and he finished the previously unbeaten Sean Woodson via Darce choke in the 3rd round this past Saturday in Las Vegas. What a night it was for Juicy J, Julian Erosa. How are you, man?
Man, that night was absolutely the best night I've had in a long, long time. You know, I went from not thinking I'd ever fight in the UFC again to winning a bonus in the UFC and being a fan favorite of the night within 4 or 5 days. So, you know, it's amazing how things can quickly turn around.
It's crazy, man. I was just going to say, because that was your 24th professional victory in the sport. I can't imagine any of those other wins were anywhere close to this one, right?
You know, absolutely not. You know, I've had some good battles before and some good wins. But man, you know, it's just like this last fight really felt like my back was against the wall, and all I've ever really wanted to show everybody was just the true Juicy J, and I think that last fight really showed it. You know, I've always been one of those guys who's ultra aggressive and can put the pace on anybody and take damage and give damage, but I've always been one of those, like, you know, dig deep and let's see who'll last it out. And I've always been one of those guys in the gym that just kind of outworks everybody. And I just really wanted to showcase that. And I felt like I was able to do that with, you know, just brawling with the guy for the first 2.5 rounds and then able to finish him on the ground after that and just showcase, you know, all levels of the game and just really show my pressure and my aggressiveness. And, you know, especially when people probably thought I was coming off the couch or something. You know, I'm always in good shape, but having it say 5 days notice definitely gets people thinking that, you know, I'm going to be lazy or cardio's not going to be there. But I tell you what, I train hard every day, whether I have a fight or I don't have a fight. So I was ready to go 100%.
So I do want to go back a little ways, because you and I had spoke back in January. I think it was before your fight in February. You won that fight via submission in the first round. It was Cage Sports 60, I think it was. And it was a really fascinating conversation, but a lot of things stuck out. But there are a couple of things that really stood out in that conversation. One, the fact that you were released from the UFC in back-to-back fights. Like you said, you were released after the Dawson fight, and they brought you back for the Julio Arce fight. And the other thing that really stuck out was you told me that your manager, Jason House, told you that essentially, look, Julian, you're not in the UFC anymore, but I don't think the door has like slammed and locked behind you just yet. So you spoke with the media after and you said, I didn't think this call would ever come. But on a scale of 1 to 10, where did you sort of rate your chances of getting another shot at the UFC, whether for this fight or any time down the road?
Well, you know, that all depends on, you know, and on when you asked me that question, like obviously right now it's a different story, but or even the last week or the last couple of weeks, that number would be a lot higher because Jason was always on my phone line and he was telling me, yo man, these things are coming, these short notice fights are happening. The UFC needs these guys. They need you local guys who got your medicals done, in shape, can make weight. They're getting these short notice fights, but so. The last few weeks, I've thought that it was a high possibility that I might get this short notice fight. But man, when I talked to you last after the Julio Arce fight, man, you asked me that, I would have said there's just zero chance, absolute zero chance. The only thing that made me had a kind of a little bit of a hope was Jason. He's always a man of his word, and he never kind of bullshits me. And he told me, I know you're not in the UFC, and I know you don't think you can get back there, but I wouldn't tell you that you could unless I knew for a fact that you could. And he's all like, Sean likes you, man. He's talking about Sean Shelby, and he's like, Sean liked you, and even though you lost to Julio, he liked the first 2 rounds that you gave him. You're aggressive. Even he thought you were winning that fight at that point until you lost, and so he didn't close the door on you, man. It's anything's possible, and after you told me that, I had a little bit of hope, but still in my mind, I'm like, I'm 1-4 in the UFC. Come on, man. Like even if I do get another shot, people are gonna be talking crap. It's gonna be difficult for me to overstep some other guys that might, also take a short notice fight. Obviously I was thinking in my head, if it's a short notice fight, there's got to be guys above me or, guys that they're willing to give the shot to because they've given me so many shots as it is. I think, I've just been blessed with having a good manager like Jason. And I've really learned through this whole process that it's not necessarily, what but who a little bit as well. And I've always thought hard work's going to pay off, but you got to have someone pushing your name as well and working just as hard as you behind the scenes. And Jason does that. So, the last few weeks I figured it might happen, and luckily it did happen for me. And especially before Fight Island, this was the last weekend before Fight Island, and I figured there's no way I was going to get taken to Fight Island just because it's it's such a long way to go. And I'm here in Vegas. I'm local. I got my medicals done. I'm in shape. I can make weight. I just had to wait for that call, and so. It worked out in my favor this time.
So when were you actually made aware that a fight with Sean Woodson on that short notice was actually a thing? We found out Kyle Nelson wasn't going to be able to travel to Las Vegas. You could when did you know that you could be the guy to replace him, or did it just happen right away? Hey, you ready? You in? How did that all go down?
Well, so Jason had been messaging me probably Sunday and Monday saying that there's a fight and it'll be at 150. And just if I could, and he asked me if I could make 145 pounds this week. And I was like, well, I could for sure make 150, but I'll give it a shot. I'll try to make 145 and not necessarily try. I would have made 45, but I was just, it would have been a little tougher. But he told me I was actually going to get my blood drawn and it was kind of still up in the air. And Jason's like, let's just get your medicals done. That way you just in case. And nothing was for sure. I was sitting, waiting to get my blood drawn, and the number to get my blood drawn that got sent over wasn't over yet, so they couldn't blood draw. They couldn't bring me in the back and draw my blood yet because the whatever they needed to have me do it, whatever it is, wasn't there yet. So I'm just sitting there in the lobby, and he's like, "Hey man, I'm sorry, but they went with this other guy from Texas," and I was all like, all right, man, that's okay. And then I ended up taking off because they didn't have the confirmation code to get my blood drawn. And so we took off, and then he calls me back. He's like, hey, man, you should just go get your blood drawn anyways. I was like, all right. I went back, and they were closed. It was 7:30, and the place had closed. And I was like, God dang it. So I went back home. And the next morning, I went and got my blood drawn. And while I was driving back from getting my blood drawn, Jason messaged me, and he's like, hey, man, I don't think this guy's going to be able to get license or whatever it was. He was saying, I don't know what's going on, but they might need you. And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah. And then hung up with me, called me 5 minutes later and said, yo, we got the fight. And I was like, dude, we really? And he's like, yep. He's like, I'm going to set up your physical. I'm going to set your eye exam up. And I went and did those immediately. And then the next day, did all the other stuff I needed to do. I had to go get corona tested. I had to get my temperature checked, went to the hotel. And then the next day after that was Thursday, so I usually cut most of my weight on Thursday night. Friday morning, cut the rest of the weight, made weight, ate some food, and then fought. And so it was everything was back to back to back. But I really knew 100% on Tuesday that I was going to fight. But I had an idea that it could be a possibility. I mean, every week, every single week leading up to this, Jason messaged me like, yo, man, this fight fell out and you were on the list, but they went with a different guy. But just be aware, like, you were one of the top 3 guys they were looking to fight. So just be aware that you might be next up. So every week I was like having like a weight cut week. I was kind of having fight week for myself every single week. I was training hard, but I was also making sure my weight was low. I was just making sure I was checking all the boxes. I didn't want, something my coach always says is, let's eliminate the nose. Eliminate the nose. Is your weight on point? Yes. Are you in shape? Yes. Are you ready to go? Yes. Are you going to take this fight? Yes. So you got to eliminate the nose. You can't be sitting 25 pounds heavy, and try to make that within 3 days. So the fact that, I was eliminating the nose and making sure that I was available for this fight is what really, set it up for me. And also having really good management helped me out as well.
Wow. So this is like much more of almost an emotional roller coaster than I guess previously let on. I didn't realize it was like that you were in, then you were out, and now you're back in again.
Yeah. It was, man, it was back and forth. Like, and even my manager, Jason House, was like, yo, man, I'm sorry that it was such an emotional roller coaster for you. And I was like, you know what? I'm super cool, calm, and collected as it is. And it's funny because on Tuesday, I went to morning practice, and then we have sparring on Tuesday. And sparring is my favorite day because it's like a fight. And so I'm like, I can't wait to get in there. I've been sparring with Dan Ige and Boston Solomon. And both those guys, Boston's not in the UFC anymore, but he was. And Dan's one of the top featherweights in the world. And I was just excited to go spar because I love getting work with those guys. They're like the best in the world. And I was basically going to go – I had a fight. Basically, I was getting ready for a fight Tuesday afternoon. And then because it was so back and forth. And so I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go spar. I was getting my stuff ready to go, get my bag ready. And he's all like, oh, we got the fight. And I was like, all right, well, I got to put my bag away and go do medicals. So then I ran and did medicals. But, for me, I love doing this stuff. I love being in the gym. I love, everything about it. I love the process of it. So whether I had a fight or not, I was okay with it. It really didn't sway me one way or the other. I know how this game is. This game is, cutthroat and it's ruthless. And, one day you could be on top of the world. The next, you could be, everybody's Twitter feed talking crap. So I've just been really blessed that this opportunity happened and the way it did, and was able to showcase, my true abilities on Saturday night. And that's, I'm just so happy about, the situation and all the positive feedback from everybody as well.
Was it just like, do you feel like this is just the best case scenario for you? Just going in 5 days notice, you have to do some work to get ready for the fight, the medicals and all that stuff and the corona tests and everything. But all you have to do is you show up and you fight. Like, you cut the weight, you get in there and fight. Takes all the pressure off, takes like all the overthinking away from it. Do you feel like that this is the best case scenario for you to make your return?
Oh, absolutely. I remember when the corona thing happened and they were all having all the fights at the Apex Center. I was thinking, telling my wife, telling my family, and telling all my friends and all my training partners, I'm like, man, I so hope they put me in a short notice fight at the Apex Center, because the Apex is just like the Ultimate Fighter I was on. It's like there's nobody there. I mean, there's a little bit of people, but it's like, it's just similar where there's like hardly anybody. There's no fans really. I had 4 fights in the Ultimate Fighter. I had a contenders fight. So I had 5 fights in that exact scenario, where there's nobody. You're walking out. There's no fans there. It's kind of silent and kind of weird. And weird for most people, but not for me, because I've done so many fights there like that. And so I figured that I would excel in that situation, because anytime I've ever fought like that, it's always been good. All my Ultimate Fighter fights were good. I mean, I got caught by Artem, but my contender fight was really good. So I've got, 4 really good fights minus, 4 good fights and 1 bad fight. But, Artem just caught me. It's whatever, that happens in the game. But I've had really good fights and showings in that kind of situation. So I knew that if I was able to fight at the Apex with nobody there, that would be more comfortable for me than my opponent. And so I would have that little bit of an advantage on him. And then once I got that call, I was like, oh man, here it is. This is exactly what I've been asking for. And everything fell into place perfectly. All my medicals came back really quick and good. And, weight was good. Weight came off easy. And then obviously it was good too, because we kind of fought catch weight at 150. So that helped out. But he's a big dude too. So I'm sure he didn't want to make 146 for him is probably pretty hard as well. He's 6'3" with 79-inch reach. I can't imagine how, the guy's just built like a freaking alien. I don't know how he does it, but a lot of people say that about me. They're like, man, I don't know how you can make 145 pounds. But I'm saying the same thing about that kid. And nothing but respect for him and his camp. I know those guys over there at Glory, and his coach James Krause is a real stand-up guy, and so was Sean. And so nothing but respect to those guys. But yeah, it was my night, and everything fell into place for me. And it's kind of one of those Cinderella stories where you don't think anything's going to happen, and within a matter of 15 minutes, you can go from being the lamb that's going to get slaughtered to everybody jumping on my Instagram and giving me positive feedback. So it's been such a blessing, and it just really feels good to kind of give the acknowledgement that I feel I deserve. I've been doing this for a long time, and you and me have had a lot of interviews, before and after wins and losses and stuff. And, it's finally good to be back where I belong with such a big win and talking to you, man.
Absolutely. And, Sean is a guy that was having a very hard time even finding an opponent just because of the reasons that you mentioned. Built like an alien. He's a huge guy for the featherweight division. He's got a really awkward but effective style on the feet, and you jumped right in there. And the first round kind of played out the way, most people probably expected it to. Woodson was landing. You were still pushing forward like you typically do. You're trying to make it a dogfight, pushing him up against the cage, and it was a fun round. The second round was a lot of fun as well, but you could start to tell a little after midway through the second round, that the momentum of this fight was definitely starting to swing in your favor. Were you starting to feel that as well, that things were starting to turn a little bit?
Yeah, exactly. And I can't remember if I was just telling you this or because I've done a bunch of interviews today, but I almost compare fighting to like dancing. There's a kind of like an unspoken bond that you have with somebody. It's almost like I compare it to dancing because like some people that don't fight, like even if you don't fight, I'm sure you've danced before, and you can kind of feel the vibe, and they could do something and you can just kind of go along with it because you just, without even talking to each other, and same with fighting. Like it's almost like a telepathic thing. Like I could start feeling him getting really frustrated and with my ability to take that damage. And once I could feel him doing that, I knew he could also feel my confidence getting higher and higher, and then and kind of the momentum switching over. And in between the second and third round, I thought it was 1-1. I thought I'd done enough in the second round to win that round. One of the judges had it 2 for him, but I'm glad I know now. I mean, I wish I would have known then because I would have maybe been a little more urgent on taking him down and subbing him out because I thought it was 1-1. And I thought the momentum was switched over to me, and that if I just keep pushing the same way I was pushing the second round and landing some good shots, that it would give me the decision if it went all the way to the decision. Obviously, I'm trying to finish 100% of the time, But once he had dropped me, there was a switch in my head that said, okay, well, he dropped me in a round, and that looks bad on me, so I got to do something big. And so as soon as I got up, I went for a flying knee. Even Bisbee kind of went crazy for that, which was, respect out to him for that. He's like, this guy just got dropped and he just gets up and does a flying knee. This guy's crazy. And, so, I had to do things to get like the judges to like kind of forget about him dropping me. And then, I've been working kind of this like sacrificial takedown where, it's hard to take some people down with long legs like that against the cage. It works to their benefit. And so I know that because I'm a long leggy guy myself. And so I knew that if I was able to kind of like, I basically barrel rolled him over me and got him to the mat. And then he got up, used the cage to get up again, and was able to kind of almost kind of like lift him up and throw him again and get on top and into a position that I really love to set up my Darce choke. So, I wasn't necessarily thinking about subbing him, or really jumping on that opportunity until I got dropped. I was like, I figured that I was winning the fight but you can never be too sure. You always got to take it out of the hands of the judges. We see some bad decisions all the time, and not even bad decisions, just like, fights that are super close. And even though a lot of people might think you won that fight, they might have given it to the other guy. And, you can't really argue it because if a fight's pretty close, then, it can go either way. And I feel like that fight was on the feet. The fight was close. We were both landing good shots, and, you can't just leave it up to the judges every time because you're going to be disappointed a lot of the time. There's only one person that can control that, and that's yourself. And, when I got my hands around his neck, and I told my coaches and my cornerman, my training partners, and even my wife, I was like, I've been doing so many Darce chokes to everybody in the gym. I was like, if this guy gives me his neck, he ain't getting it back. He's tapping for sure. And, first attempt at any kind of grappling situation, and it worked out good for me. I knew that that's where I would be, a dominant and effective at. And, I'm lucky that opportunity presented itself.
Yeah, when you pop Michael Bisping, he has this energy that is like so infectious and contagious that like when it pops him, it pops like everybody watching at home, and that's what happened. It was just one of those scenarios where it was like the perfect right place, right time scenario for you. So when you actually get the tap, after all this time, the ups and the downs and the releases, to come back and have a fight and a performance like that against a tough up-and-coming prospect like Sean Woodson, can you even put it into words, man?
Man, it took everything of me not to like burst into tears, because it was just like, it was everything coming together. It was all the the training that I've been doing, all my training partners, and it's such a it's such a long road, and for me to lose 3 UFC fights, it's not only draining on me, but my teammates and my coaches and my family, and my friends. Me losing, it's whatever to me. I get beat up every day, man. That's what I love to do. But, the toll that it takes on my family and my friends and everybody around me that believes in me, that's the part that really puts really like, makes me feel really bad. Is just like how bad they feel if I lose, And after I got that, once I had them locked in, all I was thinking was, I'm going to squeeze everything I have into this, and I'm going to tap them. And then as soon as I'm done, I'm just going to, get up and just look at my coach, because he's had it pretty rough. The last, some of my teammates are Tim Elliott, Gina Mazzani, Gustavo Lopez, Joseph Benavidez, and all 4 of those guys just lost their last fights. Joe lost his title fight. Tim lost a fight after that. Gina lost a fight after that. And then Gustavo lost a short notice fight after that as well. And, it really takes a toll on all the, on everybody. We needed something to bring us all up, and everybody knows how hard I work in this gym. We all work hard, and, I felt like it was a relief off everybody's shoulders. It was like one of those things that it was beyond words, and, my coach started crying, and it took everything for me not to start crying. Even right now talking about it kind of gets me teary, but, just so much hard work that, I've put into this. It's like, I finally get the recognition, and I finally was able to finish a fight that I really wanted to, in a matter that I really wanted to. I used to do that on the regional show all the time, and I'm like, man, if I get to the UFC and I do this to these guys, it's going to be amazing. And it never happened. And this was finally that fight that happened, and getting a bonus like that just enhances it all, or just kind of shows that I deserve to be here, and that, I fought my ass off, and, it was a well-deserved win.
Yeah, it was an amazing win. It was an amazing fight. You get a performance bonus to boot. And, for a long time, you were the front runner for fight of the night as well, until Poirier and Hooker got on that cage. And you probably knew after the first round that the double bonus was likely not going to happen, right?
I was, it's so funny, because I was already at my apartment by the time they started fighting, because that's how quick they turn around at the Apex. You just in and out, and they just get you moving, which is I kind of like that. But so I'm watching that Dan Hooker fight and Dan Hooker and Poirier fight. I'm like, man, why can't this be the Curtis Blades and Volkov fight, man? Because then I could get a double bonus, and people were posting like, give that kid 100 G's, and like, I don't like to count my eggs before they hatch, but I was just happy with the outcome, and I didn't even know. We went over to my manager's house afterwards, and I celebrated a little bit and just got to hang out. And I had no idea I won a bonus until I was at his house, and he looks at me and he's like, yo, we got it. And I was all like, what are we getting? And he's all like, 50 G's. And I was like, oh, hell yeah. It's like, life-changing money. I was fighting for 20 G. I was fighting for $20,000. If I won, I was getting 14 and 14. So 50 grand's almost double that. And so it's life-changing money for a guy like me, and for upcoming fighters and stuff. And, especially guys that we struggle out here. Fighting is not an easy way to make money. People think that it's like, some glorified sport, but it's, this is the hardest of the hard. It's like wrestling, it's one of those things that you have to do because you love, because, it's one of the hardest ways to make a living. But, I knew after I watched about 2.5 rounds of the Hooker and Poirier fight before we took off to my manager's house, and I was like, you know what? I was actually hoping that one of them was going to get knocked out quick, because then it'd be like they would get a performance, and then me and that dude might have got a fight of the night or whatever. But I figured no matter what, regardless of bonuses or whatever, I just was happy to get the win and to probably get a guaranteed another fight in the UFC. That's all I was really looking for, and all I was looking for was just to perform to my, to my abilities, and I was able to do that, and that's what I was really looking for. But 50 G's on top makes it a whole lot better. I tell you what.
You get a couple bruises, couple stitches, extra 50 G's, so that kind of balances the scale a little bit. But
hey, I love this stuff. I love getting bruised up. People, some people don't like to get punched in the face, but I actually enjoy that kind of stuff, and it's not a big deal. I mean, it's all pluses to me.
When do you want to get back? I mean, I know we don't let you savor the flavor for too long, but when are you thinking you want to get back to follow that up and try to keep this train moving?
Yeah, they've been really giving out a lot of suspensions for hard fights, and I got a cut over my eye, and so they told me 30 to 45 days for that. So that leaves me like mid to late August, possibly to fight again. But I got a couple bangs and bruises, and I want to get into, if I'm going to start getting ready for a fight, I want to, get over all the bumps and bruises. So I have like a healthy fight camp. I don't want to extend any of these injuries. And so, and nothing's injured really. It's just more bumps and bruises, but I'm hoping maybe September, like any time in September, I think would be good. I don't know the UFC schedule. I know they're going to the Yaz Island for all of August, and then July,
yeah.
And then they're coming back here for August. And then I don't know what they're doing in September, if they're going to keep doing fights here in September, if they're going back to Fight Island or wherever they're doing. So, maybe I'll just kind of see what's going on with that. But obviously I want to sit down with my coaches and my management and kind of see, certain opponents that we could be looking forward to, and, kind of setting something like that up. I feel like my first run after the Ultimate Fighter, after I got cut the first time and I got my second shot and I was 0-3, I felt like I was being desperate. I took Devontae Smith on 10 days notice and got knocked out. And then I took Grant Dawson. I had a fight camp for that, but I had an ear infection. I was on antibiotics, and I was fighting desperate. I wasn't being smart about things. I really want to just take this go of it a little smarter than before. I want to pick my opponents a little bit better, pick my timing a little bit better. And if something like that happens where I do get an ear infection, I need to listen to people and just pull out. I don't need to be 100%, but I need to, if I'm on antibiotics, I can't be fighting, and that was a mistake by my part. I should have done that. I should have sat back and just rescheduled that fight. And, but I was worried, I was worried about getting cut. I got knocked out the fight before that, and I was just jumping on it, and I felt like I was just being desperate in that sense. So I want to take the desperate acts out this time. I want to just be a little bit smarter about it, and just enjoy it too. Just really enjoy this win, move on, find a good opponent, and enjoy my next fight in the process up to that. So I'm hoping maybe mid to late September or whenever. I mean, we'll see what the schedule's like, and hopefully sooner than later.
And then last thing for me, kind of going back to that conversation we had in January, you had mentioned that, you didn't really want to walk away from the sport, but like you had mentioned in this conversation, some of your family members, friends, they were like, I don't know, man, like we're worried about you. But at the end of the day, they all still had your back. So what do you want to say to all the people who have believed in you, even when the chips are down? Because I think it's an important lesson in the sport for some of the up and comers, especially, to know who is truly in your corner and who is there when everything is, just coming up roses. And I'm sure that's something you've experienced at some point in your career. When you're winning, everybody wants to hang out and drink beers with you. And when you have a couple losses, you don't hear from them again. So, what do you want to say to those people who have been there since day one and haven't even wavered for a second?
That's what means everything to us, especially being like a regional scene, a regional scene fighter. When you're fighting, let's fight cage sport. We ain't getting paid big money. We ain't even getting paid media money. We're getting paid, we're getting paid for our.
Oh, did we lose him?
Oh, no.
Oh, there he is.
Sorry about that. Someone was trying to call me. But yeah, that means everything. So we're getting paid nothing on the regional scene. So it was literally those people were the only people that were really driving me, giving me my drive and my and making me want to fight. I wanted to fight for the fans. I wanted to fight for everybody that stuck behind me and believed in the dream. And so that's why I went back to cage sport and fought. It didn't make a difference what I was getting paid. I was doing it because of everybody around me who supported me. And it's amazing to see, how many people will stick by you. I'm from a smaller town too. So everybody knows who I am in Yakima, and they give me nothing but love. And obviously coming off a win like this, everybody kind of coming out of the woodwork again. But you know what? It's all love, and I appreciate everybody. There's a lot of people that message me and be like, "Man, I didn't really know who you were, but I'm a huge fan of you now. Just the heart that you showed, it was inspirational." And so even new fans, if they're just trying to jump on the bandwagon, it's all good. Positive vibes are positive vibes, and I appreciate it from everywhere. But everybody that has supported me from day one, man, it just really goes to show that if you put the hard work in, man, you can make it back. And a lot of people give up if they get cut from the UFC the first time. So for me to get cut multiple times and be back, it's just like it's just like I said, it's kind of that Cinderella story. You just got to keep putting the work in. And I figured if I was in the gym training with some of the best in the world, there's going to be coaches seeing me, there's going to be managers seeing me, there's going to be people seeing me, and knowing that I deserve to be here. And eventually something is going to happen, whether it was any, a different organization or whatever it was. And so, I'm always just, having a good time and enjoying the process. So, but I don't want to ramble on, but everybody around me, all my friends and family they've stuck by my side. It's an unorthodox way to make a living, and it's a weird career, but people have shown me nothing but love in my town, and all my friends and family have as well. So, thanks to everybody, really.
Congratulations, Julian. What a story this is. I love the Cinderella story reference. I think that makes all the sense in the world. I am very happy for you. All the best to you. Enjoy the victory. I'm sure we'll talk again soon before the next one, man.
All right. Much love, brother. Take care.
Just incredible stuff right there from Julian Erosa. What a moment it was for him on Saturday night, and I'm really happy for him. I've been interviewing Julian for a long time, as he stated on the broadcast, after wins, after losses, in the UFC, out of the UFC, and it's just amazing to watch that all go down on Saturday night against a really game guy in Sean Woodson. Sean will be back. He looked pretty darn good in that fight until he got finished. He probably won the first 2 rounds, and Sean will take a lot away from that fight. So he'll be back. Julian Erosa will be back, and he'll be back with a victory behind him and an extra 50 G's in his bank account. But that'll do it for this week's What the Heck on MMAfighting.com. Thank you all so much for watching, listening, for the words of encouragement. I mean, it really means a lot. I'll be honest. It's been a bit nerve-wracking coming into this gig, trying to fill some massive shoes. This is my first real opportunity in this space after grinding away for such a long time as a freelancer, and it's been the best professional decision of my career, no doubt about it. So for those of you who have enjoyed what we've been doing, thank you very much. For those who haven't, thank you very much. That's okay too. I see ya. And all it does is it makes me push even harder. But that's it. No UFC this weekend. Invicta FC is back tonight. Invicta FC 40. Emily Ducote versus Juliana Lima is the main event. And then we found out earlier this week that Invicta's got another card coming up on July 30th. That's going to be a real good one as well. But we'll have you covered with Invicta FC 40 on MMAfighting.com with results and all the big news that came out of that event. And then it is on to Fight Island next weekend for the UFC and MMAfighting.com. We will be there the entire time on Fight Island. Big thank you to Casey Lyden on the production side. Big thank you to Esther Lynn on the graphics. And a big thank you to all of you for watching the program. And as always, have a heck of a week, everybody.
You're listening to the Vox Media Podcast Network.